But now we have a different political story, a breaking political story from our Deputy Political Editor, Sam Coates, who's got an exclusive about the future of the Conservative Party. Sam, good morning to you. What can you tell us?
Well, as you know, ever since the general election, there's been a titanic battle between the Conservatives and Reform UK for those voters on the right of British politics. But what can the Tories do about it at this point where, for instance, today, the Tories are 5 percentage points behind Reform UK in the latest Sky YouGov poll? Well, we've got the thinking of one big beast who gave his thoughts in private when addressing students last month. That's Robert Jenrick. He's the Shadow Justice Secretary. He's also, of course, the person who came second to Kemi Badenoch for the leadership contest last year. Now, have a listen in a moment to how he thinks you should deal with reform, both what he thinks about what he's doing now, which is to fight it, but listen to what he says you might have to do in future. Here's what he was saying.
My worry is that they become a kind of permanent or semi-permanent fixture on the British political scene. And if that is the case, and I say, I am trying to do everything I can to stop that being the case, then life becomes a lot harder for us, because the right is not united. You head towards a general election where the nightmare scenario is that Keir Starmer sails in through the middle as a result of the two parties being disunited. I don't know about you, but I'm not prepared for that to happen. I want the right to be united. And so one way or another, I'm determined to do that and to bring this coalition together and make sure that we win these elections.
So what you've got there, Wilf, is that Robert Jenrick absolutely emphatic that you cannot have, by the time of the next election, Reform UK and the Tories competing for votes. You can only have them, well, I suppose he means working together. He absolutely denies he's talking about some kind of pact. But at the same time, he's very much hinting that he was prepared to do whatever it takes in order for there to be no division between the two parties. Look, over 170 seats saw the vote for reform bigger than the Tory loss at the last election. There's no doubt that Reform UK harms the Conservatives dramatically, and there are plenty of conversations amongst Tory MPs and other Conservatives that something needs to be done between the two parties. How does Robert Jenrick try and get the two parties not to compete? I have to say these comments aren't unhelpful should there be a future leadership contest. A source close to Robert Jenrick says he was talking about voters, not parties. But in the end, you have a senior Tory politician there, Wilf, making absolutely clear that he is not prepared to allow the two parties to be in conflict, but not spelling out what he would do. But I think people will make up their own minds about how he thinks that you might have to change tack in future to deal with this, something that Kemi Badenoch appears not to be prepared to countenance.
Sam, so many questions that jump to mind on this. I mean, the first one is whether this was intentionally said in a way that would one day reach a efficient journalist like yourself. I mean, if you're speaking to a university kind of conservative group, it's certainly not completely private, even if it was under Chatham House rules. The second point is quite how groundbreaking what he said is or not. I mean, to use the phrase to say, once we get into an election, I don't want the right to be divided, is a long way short of saying, I will propose a merger of the two parties. And I know the rhetoric was somewhere in between, but there's certainly room for interpretation on this to say that it's not necessarily that groundbreaking, and perhaps it's just a pitch to appeal to certain voters by letting this get out there?
So I think there is no doubt that Robert Jenrick absolutely knows what he's doing, whether he's speaking to student event in London and the freedom that he has to go a little bit further compared to what he would do over when speaking in the House of Commons or on telly. Undoubtedly, he knows the different levels of wiggle room he has, the different levels of freedom he has to speak out. And I think he was exercising that in full knowledge that maybe not every single person in the room was somebody who was politically friendly towards him. But at the same time, Will, there is a debate that is not being had in public by the top level of the Conservative Party, but these kind of comments suggest that is being had in private by them. I think these comments do go further than I've seen from members of the shadow cabinet. It's that phrase, one way or another, I'm determined to make sure the right is united. Well, one way or another suggests that he's prepared to go further than the official position of the Conservative Party at the moment. If you listen to that clip again, Wilf, he makes clear that for now, the job of the Conservative Party is to defeat Reform UK, but appears to suggest that as you head towards a general election, that might change. And it's that suggestion that you might have to pivot strategy in some way because you can't let Keir Starmer in again. I think that's where you get into an interesting discussion. Well, if things need to change and you concede that you can't defeat Reform UK, what do you do then? If it's not some kind of pact coupon election where one party informally stands aside for another arrangement or whatever, there are all sorts of things parties can do that range from formal deals right down to the thing that some people think that the Labour Party and the Liberal Democrats did at the last election, which is just make sure that they didn't compete in the same areas without ever formally talking to each other or ever being caught informally talking to each other. So there's a huge, great scope of things. It seems to me that Robert Jenrick is more prepared to have bits of this discussion than his boss, Kemi Badenoch.